Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the movie Heretic, the most recent A24 film that hit theaters just last week or the week before. I'm not too sure. I just went and saw it, so it was pretty fresh in theaters when I went. I don't think there's much coming out until Wicked and Gladiator comes out at the end of this month. So my sister and I really like to go see A24 movies, not specifically A24 movies, but most of the time A24 movies are the good horror movies, the ones that really make you think, the ones that get you into the theater just by the preview being so good. And I thought Heretic was one of those movies. Originally, when I saw the trailer, I was kind of taken back a little bit just because I'm not really the biggest religious type of person. And that's what this movie kind of consists of. It consists of a lot of religious aspects. Actually, majority of the movie is religious aspects. And it all kind of is just twisted together into one big ball of just like questioning of your religion. And things about that I like, and there's things about that that I don't like. Obviously, the parts I don't like are the parts where I don't really understand religion as a whole. I'm not a very religious person, so a lot of the things that were said in this movie were dumbed down for the people that don't really pay attention to religion all that much. But you could tell if you're somebody who is a little religious or has religion in their family or wherever you find religion, it would be a movie that really sticks with you, I would say. Maybe even you wouldn't like it, to be honest with you. The movie does do a lot to question faith and question Christianity as a whole and just kind of the entire aspect of why religion exists. It's very, very thought provoking in a lot of ways. So the movie's about these two, I want to say they're 16, maybe 14, 15-year-old girls. I'm not too sure how old they are in real life, but in the movie you can tell that they're definitely underage. Two missionary girls that are like Mormon missionaries, I believe they are, going door to door in this town that they're in. They don't really tell you where the town's at or anything like that. The setting is kind of just like it looks kind of like a small town. Maybe it's a city, but it's small enough to where they have like these young girls from the church going house to house. And whatever this green dot is, it's from my LED lights behind me. So no, I don't have like Shrek jizz or whatever on my face at the moment. But movie consists of these two Mormon missionary girls, kind of just going door to door, trying to sell the religion, trying to convince people to join the church. And it gets going pretty quickly, to be honest with you. But they get to a house, actually, right away, they get to a house whose main attendee in that house is Hugh Grant, who you might know. Hugh Grant is a very good English actor. He was mostly known for like love movies, like romantic movies back in the day, but he's definitely had like a resurgence. He was in The Gentleman, which I really liked him in. And then this movie, I thought he was really good, to be completely real with you. But he's pretty much one of the people they're trying to convert, and he invites the girls into his house. And once they're in the house, things just get weird. He's not like weird in like a sexual perverted way. He's more weird in a way of like he wants to like prove a point to these girls. And by doing so, he kind of puts them through like these mind games and like this kind of game in his house. The guy's got like just the weirdest vibe to him completely. Like when you first see him, I mean, like right when they get to the door, they knock on the door, they're ready to go. It starts pouring down rain, and you hear him walking around inside the house. And it's kind of just like awkward because they're standing there like, is he going to answer the door or what? And then you start hearing all these locks on the door start to spin open. And you're like, why does he have so many fucking locks? Like, what the hell's going on? Ends up opening the door, and he's like, he has like a watering can, and he's just really like awkward in a lot of ways. So, and I know having a watering can doesn't mean like you're a weirdo or anything, but there was no plants to water. There was nothing to water. And obviously, I'm going to talk spoilers a little later, and I'll make sure to put like a little like disclaimer before I start spoiling it. I did want to talk a little bit about the ending of this movie and what I interpreted it as, because it is that kind of movie where like it's very thought provoking, kind of like ends in a way where it's got a good ending, but it ends in a way where it's like you can interpret it however you kind of see it. And with it being a more religious movie, I kind of expected that going into it as well. I feel like a lot of scary movies in general have always kind of done this thing where like they end on like this big cliffhanger. I wouldn't say this movie ends on like a cliffhanger as if it's going to have a sequel at all, because I don't think this is going to get a sequel. I do, however, think that it ends in a very like thought provoking way. And I thought it was good. I like that on my drive home we were kind of talking back and forth, my sister and I, about like how we interpreted the movie and how like we interpret religion. It got us talking a little bit deeper about things that we don't normally talk about when it comes to like in our family type stuff. We were raised to just kind of do what we want to do when it comes to religion. Um, but yeah, so this guy's weird. As soon as they get into the house, the one girl's like, or he's like, oh, my wife's making blueberry pie, take a seat and everything. And the girls are very adamant about, hey, you're a really nice guy, but we have to have a woman in the room with us to allow us to sit in the house with you and all that. And he's like, oh yeah, my wife's a little shy. Let me go get her or whatever. And every time he comes back, it's almost like he forgot to do that. And he ends up coming back. He lights a candle, sits it down, and he starts kind of just like slowly like edging them into like almost like baiting them into like certain topics of religion. And you can tell these girls like know they know their stuff, you know what I mean? They know their stuff. And what's fun about the two girls is one girl who is Chloe East, and then I think it's, let me look really quick. Sophie Thatcher. That's right, Sophie Thatcher. Both these girls are really good. Like they're very. I like them both a lot. It's kind of funny how the movie works with how like you can tell one of them has like really high aspirations for religion and for the church that they joined. The other one, you can tell, knows her shit, but you can't, you have to interpret it how you interpret it. But it seemed like she didn't really want to be a part of the religion. And later on in the movie, it kind of gives off that vibe that she was not really accepted, but she's still there for a reason. It's just all kind of a big ball of spoilers, but both these girls did really well. And the whole aspect of both of them being kind of like, in the church, but also being kind of separate at the same time in their philosophies and like their aspirations was really fun to see. And by the end of the movie, the way it kind of like flips a little bit, just there's like this small flip of like what each of them believe and, all that stuff. So, I definitely thought that the girls were really good. I thought Hugh Grant was extra good in this movie, but you could tell the girls are very uncomfortable. They don't really like, they know their shit, but you can tell it's like this is almost one of those like, okay, this might not be worth converting this guy. He's just kind of weird. Um, Long story short, the girl's like, "Oh my god, that blueberry pie smells so good." He goes, "Oh yeah, let me go get some." And as he's away, one of my favorite shots of the movie is it kind of zooms in on the candle, from like the back angle of the candle, looking up at the girl, and she grabs the candle and spins it around to see what flavor or what smell it is, and it's blueberry pie. So the whole time they've been sitting there, he's been asking these weird questions, and I'm not saying weird again. He's not weird in like a perverted way. He's weird in a way where he's like almost testing their faith in a lot of ways, and it's almost like he's trying to like, I don't want to say brainwash, but he's like really trying to like convince these young girls that like the religion doesn't make sense type shit. And it was just really like awkward a lot of times. And I think that this can only be done by Hugh Grant in this situation because he was so charismatic while also being just really creepy, and like you almost like him in the movie, though he's weird in a lot of ways. You still kind of like him because of just his tone in the movie. He ends up pretty much like, another thing that was weird is, sorry to get off topic, but as soon as they walk in the house, he's like, "Oh, I hope you don't mind, but there's metal in the ceiling and the walls." And they're like, "Yeah, that's fine." Like they're not even paying attention. And then when they're ready to leave, they're like, "Hey, we got a phone call from our minister. We have to go back." And he's like, "Oh, you're lying because we have metal in the walls. You can't get signal here." And it's just those kind of moments happen a lot where he calls them out on shit, and a lot of it's religious shit, and it's really just awkward, and it's really like just like, oh, like it's almost like a shirt that's too fucking tight or something. And I love that. I love that aspect of this movie. It's very just like, ooh, like creepy at times. And I think a lot of people will really like that. Eventually he pretty much, the movie pretty much consists of three different areas. There's the living room where they're hanging out in the beginning. They move to like the den where he like gives like this huge like, and this is a great moment in the movie, but it's just a lot for like the casual audience. He does this huge lecture on like religion and like comparing it to Monopoly, and everything he says from my point of view just completely makes sense, and I get it. And that's the best thing about bad guys sometimes, is like some bad guys have a good point. They're just fucking crazy. And that's kind of what Hugh Grant, his name's Mr. Reed in the movie, but that's kind of how Mr. Reed was in this movie. It was just very awkward, like, okay, let him go, let him leave, like it doesn't matter. And it eventually culminates into something major, towards the end of the movie. But the third major spot in the movie is in the basement of the house, where there's a cool part in the movie where when they're in the den and he gives this big lecture to them, and they start realizing like this guy's not going to let them leave, and that's where it gets really 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 tension filled. And I'll say the first half of this movie is like kind of funny, and I don't know, just a really nice slow build for being like a religious type movie that I'm not as into. It had a really nice build up, and then as soon as that middle ground hits, as soon as he goes to the kitchen or the back or the kitchen, it's the den, but he goes to the kitchen and he's like, "Come on, girls." And they start to follow him down this dark, like spiral hallway. And as soon as they turn into the hallway, there's somebody standing there, like staring at them, like corner to corner, almost like the Resident Evil 2 cover. I was like a zombie, like looking on the other side. That's kind of what was going on. And like the movie plays with the audience in that part. And that's where the tone of the movie just completely just shifts to a scary movie after that. Now, scares are subjective. A lot of people won't be scared at the things that I might be scared of. I always say this with scary movie reviews, but there were genuine moments that I was like, damn, that's creepy as fuck. That's fucked up. But there was nothing that, like, if you're somebody who doesn't like jump scares, didn't have really many of those at all. There was maybe like one or two like shocker like moments towards the end, but majority of the movie didn't have any like crazy jump scares or anything. It was mostly tension building scares. It was mostly suspense for them for majority of the movie. And I enjoyed that aspect. I don't really like the jump scares in scary movies all that much. I think they're cheap, but this one definitely did them once or twice, but they weren't like egregious whatsoever. But in that scene in the den, when they finally get to the den, he gives them that big lecture, and then he kind of lays it all down for him. And he writes, there's two doors. He writes belief and then disbelief on the other one. And he tries to fuck with the girls by like, you know, one of them's an exit, the other's not, you know, and like they even call him out. Like there's a moment where he's like, "I'm sorry, my front door doesn't open. There's a timer on it. Sorry, you're going to have to go out the back door. One of these doors leads to the back door." And they open both doors and they both lead to a basement. And at this point in the audience, you're like, wait, is this fucking real? Like, is he like, did he like, did he fucking drug them or something? Like, what is going on? Now, I'm not going to tell you what exactly it is, but you know, they even stop. I love the writing because the girls literally stop and they go, "Mr. Reed, that's a fucking basement. Like you're trying to tell me to go to a basement to get out of your house." And he's like, "Yeah, but you saw the outside of my house. So, you know, do you really think that there's like a basement that leads to a backyard?" And they're like, "No, we don't. We don't at all." And he's like, "Oh, okay, well then you're gonna have to trust me. Like I'm supposed to trust your religion." And he uses these analogies and these moments of just tension to really like kind of fuck with the audience and fuck with these girls as a whole. And I love that. I love that like the girls, you know, the two sisters are they're not sisters, but you know, they're like nuns or whatever they are, missionaries. They're very like not convinced by things, you know, they're just like the audience where like you're almost living through them in this movie. And I will say like, I'm not somebody who's ever done door-to-door sales or like, Jehovah's Witness stuff, but these people need to not do these kind of things. Like this movie is a prime example of like, don't go into a stranger's house. Like don't fucking do it. It's not worth the religion that you're trying to push. Like it's just not, because you might get kidnapped. And I think that's a really good message for this movie. But it was just fun to see how like, holy shit, like this is real. Like this could really happen. You know, you like women can be kidnapped, you know, at anybody can be kidnapped, but like, especially these young girls, you know, going door to door, they actually have like churches that do this, you know what I mean? It's kind of old fashioned, but they do this. And like, that's kind of fucked up. So that's a lot of the tension in this movie is like, I could see myself in this situation. Definitely. But yeah, he pretty much tells them, you know, go down to the basement, one or the other, disbelief or belief. One of them leads somewhere. And this shows the girls kind of split their perspectives. One's willing to go through the belief just to get the fuck out of there. The other one's willing to just say disbelief because they think that's what he wants. And sometimes the girls challenge him in a way where he kind of gets quiet and he gets like kind of like, is he going to kill them? What's he going to do type of shit. Eventually they go down to the basement, and that's where the third and final main act of the movie kind of happens. I thought when I first saw the preview, and I was a little disappointed, I thought this movie would be more of like a mind bender where like they're in like a maze of some sort, but that's more or less just a set piece in the movie, just to kind of like, it's like a perspective kind of thing. You'll understand it when you see the movie, but he's got like this like hand carved map of his whole house, like on like a board up in the den. And like, there's a couple really cool parts where like, I think there's actually only one scene actually where it like shows one of the girls running through the house on the game board, and then it zooms out of that or it zooms into it, and then it transitions into her actually running around, scared, looking around. And I thought, I wish they would have used that more. But seeing as how the movie only consisted of three major settings, the living room, the den, and then the basement, I didn't really expect a lot after that. So like I get what they were trying to do. It's just I was a little disappointed it wasn't as much of a mind bender of a movie. It was a mind bender in terms of like it questions your faith and it questions like your belief and everything like that, but it wasn't as much so like a mind bender as in like the kind that I like where it's like psychological as fuck, where it's actually in somebody's head the whole time. This was grounded. It was more realistic than I expected is what I'm trying to say here. But once they get down to the basement, things are like almost like prisoner type shit, like where they're kind of like locked into the basement and like they're kind of given these riddles and like all this crazy shit's going on. And I know this doesn't sound as interesting as it might be, but it was really interesting seeing like how he was playing with them. There's a part where this creature comes downstairs and like sacrifices itself and then it gets resurrected, and it's this like it's just a mind bender of a fucking game that this guy's playing with them. But once we get to the ending of the movie, there is a twist. I liked the twist. I liked like the whole like perspective that they were trying to go with. I like what they were trying to do with it. The ending leaves you very like questioning whether it was like, is this person alive? Is this person dead type of shit? And I thought that was pretty good. I don't really have a lot that I didn't like about the movie besides the fact that I kind of went into it expecting something a little less religious, but it ended up being more religious and I still liked it. So I would definitely recommend this. If you like Hugh Grant, if you think he's a good actor, he was the best in this movie. He was very good. The two girls that are in it were really good. I believe Topher Grace is also in it. Eric Foreman. He's he's one of the like ministers that comes to look for the girls, and it's kind of underwhelming, but he's just kind of there. So he's like an ill added bonus. There's not much like blood and gore in this movie. There is blood, but there's not like a whole lot. There's not a crazy amount or anything. It's not going to be something that you're going to be like, heebie-jeebied about, but there is blood. There's not really any cussing whatsoever, I would say. I don't think there was any like foul language whatsoever in this movie. No sex or anything. It was mostly just a really good, like kind of mind bender, question your faith type of movie. If you're into like religious stuff, this might creep you out quite a bit, might give you some questions to have. But other than that, it was just your typical good suspense thriller. I thought every actor did really well. I like how it was like low budget and there was only a couple different settings in the movie. And I like how they ran with it, throughout the whole movie. The settings were fine. It worked out even though it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. So, I don't really love putting ratings on things because I feel like ratings are just kind of, subjective in a way, but I guess I would give it like a 9 out of 10. I thought it was really good. I thought it was fun to watch. It's nice seeing Hugh Grant as a bad guy. He was really good. Now, I'm going to kind of just take a few minutes to talk some spoilers. So if you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching. But we're going to talk a little bit about the ending of the movie. So the one girl, I thought both girls in this movie would survive, to be honest with you. I thought they would both survive and take out Mr. Reed. But it turns out that one of the girls gets killed like about 3/4 of the way through the movie, and it was very unexpected. It kind of came out of nowhere because it's in a moment where like they're like kind of tricking the guy. So like you think he's about to get stabbed, but he ends up slitting the throat of the one girl, and it kind of just comes out of nowhere, and it's a shocker, and that's where a lot of the blood comes from because she starts just gushing. But it's kind of out of nowhere because you really like these girls, like they're really good characters and you really want to see them get out because you see yourself in that position. You want to get out. And it's just kind of crazy when she dies. But as soon as she dies, the big reveal starts to happen that like, he's been kind of faking all of this shit just to like convince these girls so he could like pretty much kidnap them in the end. He's got like a bunch of these like nuns that look like monsters, but they're all like malnourished and fucked up, in cages under his house and everything. And it's just really fucked up. Like there's a lot of like fucked up shit that he's actually doing. But in the end, the last girl remaining, the girl you didn't expect to actually survive, the more naive girl, she's the one that kind of gets through everything. And she's good as like a final girl in a way, but they get back down to the basement and she kind of like turns around and there's Mr. Reed and he stabs her. And as he stabs her, she hits him in the neck with like a fucking pen or something or like a letter opener. So like they're both like bleeding out. But like she kind of goes into her religion and starts to pray for him, and right when she's praying for him, he goes to slit her throat while he's bleeding out, and the other girl gets up, and turns out she wasn't dead, she was just really close to death, I guess, and hits him in the head with like a fucking a 2x4 with some nails on it, and that was pretty cool, really shocking too. It surprised me. I definitely looked over at my sister. I was like, I didn't expect that. I didn't realize it, though. Looking back, I should have expected it. I didn't. I just didn't expect it. But the thing I wanted to really talk about to set this up was, in the end, the main girl, the girl that survives, she gets out, and it shows her walking through the snow, and she puts her finger up and a butterfly lands on her finger, and that's reminiscent to what she said to the other girl before she died. She was like, when I die, I hope I come back as a butterfly and I land on somebody's finger to let them know that like it's me. And that happens at the end, but it cuts and the butterfly disappears. So it leaves you to open interpretation of like, okay, like I'm not sure what the movie wanted me to think, but my first thought was, oh, she died. She's not even real, because we don't necessarily, a lot of the movie's themes, it tackles like what happens after death. A lot of the ways he manipulates these girls is by convincing them that the nuns that he has down in the basement, one of them comes out, kills herself, and then comes back to life out of nowhere. And it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense how he replaces the body, because he replaces it with another nun and he makes the girls think, oh my God, she came back to life. And it's to test their religion and to test their faith. But the one girl figures it out, and that's when everything kind of gets revealed. He does that to convince the girls that like, oh, there is nothing after death. You know, it's just darkness or whatever. So it's symbolic when she dies at the, or when she gets out at the end, that like the butterfly, is there and then it disappears. I thought to myself like, oh, she's dead and this is just her transitioning into death. This is what happens after death. Because earlier in the movie, when they're trying to get out of the basement, they see the window that she gets out of, and the one girl can't reach the ledge. Like she cannot lift her arms up far enough. Like she doesn't even reach the ledge to like pull herself up. So there's no way with this girl with a stab wound gets out alive and just walks out. And then to even more confirm that I think she's dead, the butterfly disappears, which tells me that it's like she's dying and her belief is still there. And I think that's what the movie's end goal was to show like she still has belief, and if you want to believe in something, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. But the movie did really convince me, as somebody who's not religious, to not even care about religion, because it had a lot of good points. But that's just something I wanted to talk about with the movie. I really liked it, and I did enjoy the ending, and I've been thinking about it throughout the week since I've seen it. So hopefully you guys like this review. Have a good night. Bye.